Hi and welcome to my channel, and in this video I'm going to talk some more about this puzzle here in continuation to some other videos I've recently made. So in a prior video that I made, I mentioned that I calculated at that time that it's possible to scramble and solve this puzzle here in over 80 different ways. Well, since then I've continued to explore the possibilities of different scrambles and solves, and made a whole spreadsheet and actually even put together an entire book, which I'm going to mention soon. And based on that, basically I figured that it's possible to scramble and solve this puzzle actually, as far as practical ways of scrambling and solving it, in probably over 200 different ways. So what I mean by practical versus impractical: practical means that it's relatively manageable to memorize the bandage that you're doing. So for instance, if I want to bandage this block, the 222 block right here, so let's this little cube, let's say, and I hold this to let's say to the bottom left as I scramble the rest of the puzzle, and I remember the colors, red, blue and yellow. It's fairly manageable to keep scrambling the puzzle without scrambling this and then to solve it. It's more challenging than just solving the puzzle as is, but it's doable, and there's different possibilities. So let's see, let's bring this back. And for instance, you could do a 224 block, for example. So let's say this whole block here, everything else gets scrambled fully, and this block here. So that's another example. It's relatively easy to memorize this throughout the scramble and solve. But on the other hand, let's say you wanted to keep 4 different external edges, specific ones, bandaged throughout the scramble solve. You're constantly going to have to be checking, which ones are the ones that are bandaged, which ones are not, and it's going to get very frustrating. So that's not a very practical way. So as far as practical ways of doing it, relatively practical, I figured there's at least 200 or more possibilities, and a lot of them broken down basically into cuboid variations and regular 4x4 cube variations. Obviously with different types of bandage blocks. So cuboid variation, for example, let's say you could solve this as a regular 4x4 cube where all layers turn freely and all of them turn in 90-degree turns. But then you could also solve it as a 4x4x4 cuboid, and basically what that means, let's say you pick a top and bottom. I usually like to pick green as my top, blue is going to be bottom. So on the vertical axis I could only do 180-degree turns, but on the horizontal axis I could do 90-degree turns, and that would be a cuboid variation of the 4x4x4 cube. And then you could do a 3x4x4. In that case, on the horizontal axis you could only turn these top and bottom layers, and you could turn them in 90-degree turns, whereas on the vertical axis you could turn all of the layers, but only in 180-degree turns. And then you could do a 2x4x4, which means that on the horizontal axis you turn only this middle layer, but on the vertical axis you turn them all in 180-degree turns, but this middle layer on the horizontal axis you turn it in 90-degree turns. And so with that, there's I think, what was it, 16 or something variations, 15 or 16 different cuboid variations. Plus you could obviously scramble and solve it as a 2x2 cube. You could do it as a 3x3 cube, which is going to be a 3x3 crazy cube, and as a 4x4. So these base variations, I think you have 19 of them if I remember correctly. And then with all the bandage block possibilities, that's where you get those really high numbers of over 200 different possibilities. And I'm not going to go through all of them in the video, obviously, but I did actually, like I mentioned, I put together a book because as I got into exploring this whole thing in the past month or so, and I started making a spreadsheet and exploring different possibilities and actually doing many of the scramble and solves as well, I thought it was really interesting. And the reason I decided to put it in book format is because it's going to give a visual aid. In the book there's pictures for which pieces get bandaged throughout these different variations, and when you have that visual aid, it makes it easier to see these possibilities, to understand them more so than just explaining it by words. And of course I also explain it with the words there And so the title of the book is 130 plus 130 plus ways to scramble and solve the crazy 4x4 cube. Now the reason it's titled 130 plus ways is because initially when I finished the book, there's a little part that I added on later in one of the last pages, but initially I put together 131 different ways, which includes solving it as the base 4x4. But then I realized that I forgot to add in all the 4x4x4 cuboid variations of those basically bandage blocks. And so that basically increased it to over, I'd say probably over 200 possibilities. But the title of the book nevertheless is 130 plus ways to scramble and solve the crazy 4x4 cube. And everything I made myself, basically all the text, the pictures, editing, the cover, the front and back covers, and I submitted it for copyright and everything, and I put it for sale on Etsy. But I'd be happy to send anyone a free copy as well. And I've considered, I'd actually like to at some point maybe make a few print copies, but they're rather expensive if you make a few of them. And if you make a whole bunch of them, they become cheaper, but you know, I don't really think there's a market for it to make like 1,000 print copies or something, or even 100 of them. It's a really niche kind of market, and so I just made it for the joy of making it. It's not about making money or anything like that. It's just because I thought this would, you know, be a good way to share this idea with people, and also give people different possibilities to scramble and solve this puzzle. Think about it. You could do it 200 different ways. You could scramble and solve this one single puzzle, and then if you take, let's say, a regular 4x4 cube, many of those possibilities, not all of them, but many of them, transfer over to this. So that's another 100, 150 or whatever different possibilities. So just between these two puzzles, over 300 different ways to scramble and solve them. And think about it, if you add like a 5x5 cube, 6x6, so on and so forth, you really get into really high numbers of possibilities of what you could do. So yeah, I thought I'd talk about that, and I was going to do a few solve variations in this video, but I don't want to make it too long, so I'm probably going to record that in a separate video. So that'll be all for this video, and thank you for watching, and until next time.